Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. Now in this replay, our Zerg player here is the Little One, and our Protoss opponent is Kiwi Cocky. Now let's go ahead and go right into the Little One vision. So again, this is a Zerg strategy. What we're going to be looking at specifically today, just a few things. We're basically going to be looking at having a nice mix of units, how to deal with early pressure from your Protoss opponent in the form of a pylon followed by cannon at your expansion. A lot of Protoss players have been doing that against Zerg simply because it's really effective at denying that expansion really early. It basically forces you to get Zerglings first to deal with it and then get that expansion. So that's why a lot of players have been doing that. And we're also going to be taking a look at taking map control, why it's important to take map control, how you should be taking map control, basically the different methods behind doing it and the purpose and reason behind doing it. Starting things off, we're going to be attempting to go for a pretty standard build. I'm just going to leave the Little One vision there. We were following this camera around, which gives some people seizures, I believe. So, no, but we're going to be looking at a pretty standard opening build, starting out with that spawning pool at 14 and then getting a 15 hatchery. Getting that spawning pool before the hatchery allows you to get those Zerglings out faster. Clearly, that's the idea behind it. Some Zerg players like to actually switch that up. They prefer to get that hatchery first to get those extra larvae really quickly and then kind of hold back on those Zerglings. But specifically, this is probably a good idea because, again, a lot of players have been going for that kind of expansion deny by those in using those cannons. So something we're going to note here is we move in our Overlord on this particular map, and first thing we want to check is that front wall, of course. Everyone knows you have to wall off against Zerg in one fashion or another because otherwise Zerglings will pretty much ruin your day. Now, in not seeing this front wall here, the first thing we're going to want to do is move south and check this choke right here. And as you can see specifically, the Protoss opponent in this matchup did go for some sort of a wall off there. We've got this cannon, or we've got this pylon, and followed it up with a forge there. And we can see that when we move down to check our expansion, we are seeing some buildings being warped, and that is in fact a photon cannon. He's trying to warp into photon cannon. He does actually end up canceling it there, and the reason is because he sees that no expansion is going down. But a lot of Protoss players have been doing that. A lot of Protoss players have been putting down pylons and a cannon at the expansion to try to prevent you from expanding early. Now, what we're going to do to counteract this, instead of waiting forever, waiting for our Zerglings, delaying our expansion that long, we actually decided to just put down our hatchery over here. Two big things to note about this position, one of which is, of course, it's going to be a lot more vulnerable. It's very far from your main here. You've got to travel all this distance, so it's much more vulnerable. But the other thing, too, is that if he tries to continue this cannon pressure, or this cannon expansion deny, it's going to be a lot easier for you to deal with, because by the time he finally finds wherever you expand to, after trying to do that initial one at your natural, you're going to have those Zerglings out in time to be able to take care of it, no problem. Now, one other thing to note, too, is that although this is more vulnerable, the other important thing is that this also means you're a little bit closer to your opponent on this particular map. If you happen to expand here, you've got your larva much closer to your opponent. Now, obviously, you do have this venue here that you could go through, but you have to spend all that time breaking through those destructible rocks. And then at the same time, that also makes you more vulnerable from a counterattack from your opponent. So this isn't as bad as it may seem because, again, we are allowed to be a little bit more aggressive because we now have larvae and the ability to spawn in units much closer to our opponent. Now, after something like this happens, this fiasco of him trying to deny your expansion by wasting money on cannons and pylons, it's going to be a good idea to counterattack just to see what's going on. I'm going to be trying to take down this destructible debris. Also going to be putting up our production tab so you guys don't scream at me. And then checking the front wall there. Now, you can see here, this is kind of what we expected. When we saw this initial wall off, when we saw that forge here and this pylon, we knew that there was likely to be a continuation of the wall. The purpose being is that he obviously is trying to go for a quick expansion. Now, in doing this puts you in kind of a good position, to be perfectly honest. It allows you to take map control, and that's something you want to take advantage of. You can see we are coming down with these creep tumors right here. Before we get much further, though, let me cover how our build order has gone thus far. Started off with that 14 pool. I already went over that. A 15 supply, we were trying to move into our natural for an expansion, but since we saw that we was building a pylon and cannons there, we decided to move over to the third base, which is this one right here. And then at 18 supply, we saw that Roach Warren go down. We're going to want to get out early roaches because after something like that, again, your opponent tries to deny your expansion, and they put a lot of resources into it through that pylon and also those photon cannons, and then they also have this front wall off. If you can get out some early roaches and try to play aggressive, you might be in a good position. You might be able to do a lot of damage. You have to worry about units shooting from the high ground here, so a much better position for placing your roaches would be over here, where he's not likely to attack them from. Again, he is walled in at this point, so you don't have to worry about much coming from this side unless he destroys one of these, or unless his pylon power extends over here and he can warp in units outside. But then he's also sacrificing those units, so it's not very likely you're going to have to deal either way from pressure over here. At this point, we are seeing the Void Ray, and this is something that we were aware is likely, and it's something we also prepared for. We got that evolution chamber down. That did come down at 40 supply, and then we're also going to be getting some spore crawlers up, because now we have seen the Void Ray on the board. The other thing to realize is that queens don't do terribly against Void Rays. They actually do pretty well if you have 2 queens. The main problem you can see here with just this 1 queen is it allows the Void Ray enough time to charge up to kill him. If you had a second, you could use Transfuse, and then also with the second queen, that's obviously additional damage as well. So we're going to want to try to get these spore crawlers up to try to deal with these Void Rays. Aside from that, again, using those queens is going to be a good idea. Also, we're going to be going ahead and getting down a Hydralisk Den. Hydralisks clearly do very, very well against Void Rays, so going to be getting that as well. The other purpose, of course, behind getting those Hydralisks is what I alluded to earlier, is that we're going to be trying to get just a good composition of units. We don't want to really pigeonhole ourselves into only getting 1 or 2 types of units. If you can mix up your army just a little bit, it's really going to help. That versatility is really going to help you deal with different scenarios that you could be coming across. Again, Hydralisks are going to help you deal with those Void Rays, and these Zerglings and Roaches do pretty well against most all Protoss ground. Your only big threat is going to be your opponent going for a Colossus. That's something you do have to keep an eye out for and look for. Roaches can survive a little bit more Colossus fire than our Hydralisks or our Zerglings can, so you can try to use them to get up close to Colossus. The other thing that you're going to be seeing us go for actually is Infestors, and going to be getting that Neural Parasite so that we can mind control the Colossus. That's another option you have as well. And then of course you could get a Spire up, and with that Spire you would be able to get some air units that can take care of those Colossus. But at this point what you're going to be seeing is we're just going to be macroing up, we're going to be getting units, and we're going to be taking that map control. And again, that's something I talked about in the beginning of this video. I just want to go over that real quick. If you're ever in this position, your opponent walls themselves in, they're going for a quick expansion, it puts you in a really strong spot to take map control, simply because it's going to be hard for them to push out. And if they're playing this defensively, and it's not necessarily having to be the case that they're going for an expansion, if they're playing very defensively on 1 base, take advantage of that. Go for some expansions. Spread your creep. Spread out your overlords as much as possible. Obviously, you'd have to worry about air units taking out your overlords, and something that we can do to deal with that is getting that speed upgrade. If we get that speed upgrade, that's going to allow us to basically move our overlords out of harm's way if anything so happens to come along. So that's something you definitely want to do. Again, if they're boxing themselves in, whether it be with an expansion and forming a wall like this, or if they're just on 1 base and they're playing very defensively, then expand, spread that creep. Creep is absolutely huge in this game. As Zerg, obviously you have that added benefit of the speed, but one of the really big things and one of the really most important things is the extra vision it gives you. I mean, if you just take a look at the mini map over here, you can see it's like we can almost see the entire map with all this creep spread and our overlords. And I don't have everyone vision on, but it's pretty close. Just with all the scouting opportunities that Zerg have, spreading that creep is really one of the focal points, because you're going to be allowed to see any attacks coming early on. Also, spotting overlords along this area to see if any air is coming, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe an overlord here, and then one over here. This is going to provide you ample time to deal with any threats, and that's the big advantage to this creep. If he were to start to push out, we would have plenty of time to prepare. We would know it's coming. We could rally our units together, spread our units out to be prepared to surround him, which is something that you definitely want to do as Zerg. So yeah, spreading creep, getting scouting information, really good, really important. You should be doing that in all of your games. At this point, we're just macroing up. We're getting our units. Also going to be getting that infestation pit. Like I'd said, we're going to be using those infestors and researching that neural parasite. That's going to allow us just another avenue. It's just another unit. Again, trying to have a nice mix of units, trying to have a nice composition. That's what you really want to do. Fungal growth, obviously really strong. If you get that neural parasite, it can help you deal with things like Colossus. So yeah, just macroing up, we're going to be getting our upgrades. You can see those coming here. Also, we already have our Hydralisk range upgrade is something you obviously want to get. And here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He's trying to push out because of all this creep. We are well aware of where he is at all times. And we can know if he plans on being aggressive, if he plans on attacking, and as such we can engage him when it's the right time. Now, you wouldn't want to engage him in a spot like this where it's in a choke, because again, you do want to be able to surround with your units. Ideally, you'd want to wait till he pushes out to about here. If you have some units down here and you have some units over here, then you can just wrap them around, get a nice surround, and take them out pretty easily. The big danger is going to be force fields. You really have to worry about those and how to properly deal with those, and we'll take a look at that once an engagement goes through. But at this point, again, just spreading our creep, spreading out our overlords here, checking all possible expansions, and just trying to know what's going on at all time. That really is key, and that's something you can really do effectively as Zerg. Going to be getting our upgrades, continuing our upgrades as well, and that's the real advantage to having map control. And to kind of boxing your opponent in like we're able to do here. If he tries to do anything, we're going to be aware. If he tries to expand, he clearly can't expand here at this point. But if he tried to bring a probe down here and expand, we would be aware. Obviously, at this point, we're going to be able to see if he tried to drop any probes in here to expand. And that having that access, having that vision, allows you to respond and respond properly. So you can see here at this point getting that neural parasite upgrade. He's moving out. He's got an observer clearly because he is picking off our creep tumors. So at this point we do know, okay, it's putting us in the dark a little bit. I'm going to want to try to put our guys in a good position here. Again, it wouldn't be a bad idea to hold some units down here so that you can get that surround when he does push out. For example, when he pushes out to this position, if you had guys that would wrap around, you'd be in a good spot. So you can see here, he is getting those force fields off. You're just trying to want to grab your units and make sure you can wrap them around. If he creates a full wall like this, just be very careful with your guys. You don't want to run them in there unnecessarily and kill them. Something else to realize is a wall that heavy going down, that he's going to be very low on energy. If you keep pushing, you should do pretty well. At this point, just kind of holding on to our infestors, waiting until see if we actually need them for anything. Something else to know is also bringing this queen up. Now the purpose here is pretty obvious. Queens don't do a lot of damage, but that transfuse is absolutely huge. And you're going to want to use that transfuse on any of the more expensive or more vital units. So for example, those Hydralisk or those infestors, those are going to be good targets. You don't necessarily want to drop transfuses on any Zerglings just because they're dirt cheap. You know, 25, I almost said 25 cents, 25 resources for one Zergling. You don't really need to use the energy for those guys. Use them on those primary offensive units, on those really expensive ones. So as you can see, we pushed in and it was just too much for him to handle. The purpose, or no, I'm sorry, the reason that was the case is because he boxed himself in. Yes, that allowed him to safely go for that fast expansion, but it allowed us to take full map control. It allowed us to deny him from taking a third. As you can see, we obviously have 3 bases up. Having that extra base provided us with the necessary resources. It also allowed us to get full vision of the map and see what was going on, and all those things in conjunction with one another are the reason you're able to be successful if your opponent boxes themselves in like this. Let's take a look at that build order real quick though. We saw that 14 spawning pool. That was followed up with a 15 hatchery. Again, we normally would have gone into our natural, but because there was that pylon and that photon cannon warping in, we decided to negate that and go for our third instead. 18 supply, getting down that Roach Warren. Early Roach is going to help us deal with any aggression from him. Also allows us to counterattack and be aggressive ourselves. 17 supplies when we came out with our first queen, and 19 supply, we got that Extractor. 36 supply, getting that Metabolic Boost. At 40 supply, upgrading to a Lair there. And then at 42 supply, getting that Hydralisk Den. And then at that point, we just got our upgrades. We macroed up. Eventually, also getting that Infestation Pit, getting those Infestors, going to be good for those infested Terrans. We also got that Neural Parasite in case there was anything like Colossus on the board. So yeah, guys, spread out your creep, get map control. If your opponent boxes themselves in, take advantage of that. Don't be threatened, or don't feel like you have to rip this wall down right away. Just chill out, pull back, get some expansions, spread your creep, and you'll be in a good spot. Once again, this has been Force Strategy Gaming. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. Marines, basically. The only thing you have to really worry about is them using stim pack and kiting away, but either way, banelings are strong against those light units such as the Marines. So as you can see here, these mutalisks are finally up. We're going to be moving out, trying to do as much harassment as possible. Important things to always be doing as Zerg, spraying those creep. Also going to be coming out with another expansion here.